welcome to my video. Today, I'm going to be talking about episode 6 of season 18 of Deadliest Catch. And the boats that are going to be in this episode are the Stalbus, Tromstund, Cornelia Marie, and the Patricia Lee. On the Bering Sea, there is going to be a giant storm. It's kind of like a hurricane because it's going to have 80 to 100 plus mile an hour winds and the seas are going to be nasty. It shows Sig talking about having to go back to Alaska to start the bear dye season because the canneries are going to shut down sooner than they expected because there's not as much activity going on with the canneries. Sig and Wild Bill, this is going to be the last time for this season that they're in Norway for fishing because they need to get back up to Alaska to start their seasons with their own boats. This episode starts out with the Cornelia Marie. And the Cornelia Marie, they're in some pretty heavy seas with the wind blowing and they're hauling in their gear. And it's getting like a couple golden king crab to 0 golden king crab. Josh is like, we're gonna haul them in. Then it goes to the Stalbus and Sig is sent out on the Russian-Norway line because Sig believes that there's gonna be a big school of king crab there because they're coming over from Russia into Norway's waters. So they're in this area right by the Norway-Russian line. Sig had set his gear there and they start hauling in their gear. The first pot they haul up comes up with 54 king crab in it, and then the next one has like 5 to 10 king crab in it, and then the next one is about 1 or 2 king crab in it. And then the rest of the other pots after that are blanks. Then it goes to the Patricia Lee, and the Patricia Lee is just getting out to the Golden King Crab grounds in the Aleutian Islands area. They got a greenhorn on the boat to replace Francis for this season. They get out to the Golden King Crab grounds, and the greenhorn who just arrived, he's the first person out on deck. So that's really impressing Captain Rip. They get the pots ready to start launching them into the Bering Sea to start fishing for golden king crab. Then it goes to the Tromstund in Norway. They're hauling in their gear and they're getting single-digit numbers to 0 king crab in each pot. Wild Bill, looking at the charts, he's thinking maybe the king crab are kind of like how they are in the Bering Sea, where there's a divot. That's probably where the king crab are going to be. So Wild Bill is going to set his gear in that area in Norway and see how it goes. Then it goes back to the Cornelia Marie and Captain Josh. He has his brother Shane up in the wheelhouse, and Casey's either sleeping or something. He wasn't up in the wheelhouse, but Josh just has this gut feeling that the Golden King Crab, where they had just had their gear, he believes that they're going to come back when the storm dies down. Josh decides to set his gear back where they were. Then it goes back to the Stalbus, and Sig gets a call from Wild Bill. They're talking about that this is going to be our final trip in Norway, because other than that, we're going to have to get out to Alaska. So Wild Bill tells Sig what he thinks is happening, that the king crab are kind of how they are in Alaska, where they're in the divots. So Wild Bill tells Sig that I've set my gear in that, and he recommends that Sig should do that. So Sig's out by the Norwegian-Russian line, and he sees this one goalie that's pretty close to that line. So Sig is going to set all of his gear there. Then it goes back to the Patricia Lee, and the Patricia Lee is setting their gear, and while they're setting their gear, there's 2 extension cords that are plugged in. They start smoking and catching on fire. The greenhorn on the Patricia Lee, he sees that, and he cuts tape off, and he gets the fire out. And then one of the deckhands on the Patricia Lee, they turn the breaker off for that extension cord. And then they get back to setting their gear. And while they're setting the gear, it's in a string and the pots are attached. So it's over like a 20 to 40 pot string. And one of the deckhands has just attached it to another pot. And he's lowering it. And that pot almost lands on his foot. And that's an 800-pound pot. So that would not have been good. Captain Rip is not happy about that. And then it goes back to the Cornelia Marie and setting their gear. Shane is not really paying attention they just got a pot over the side, and he's throwing one of the buoys and the bite catches him. One of the crew members cuts the pot line and they're all good, so there's probably about $2,000+ worth of gear that they lost, but that's better than losing a life. Then it goes back to the Stalbus and Tromston. They're both setting their gear in those areas. Tromston's in the fjords and the Stalbus is out by the Norwegian Russian line. There was a salty take where Shane, he was getting pretty seasick, and Josh and Casey both up in the wheelhouse. And Casey, he starts pranking Josh by making the puking sound. And Josh is like, "Stop that, Casey." He's had enough. He just does this with his hood, pulls it over his head, and is covering his ears, because Josh will puke if he hears that noise. So he's just doing that. Casey is going and going, and he's like, "I got myself really going there. I couldn't stop." Then it goes back to the Tromston and the Stalbus, and they start hauling in their final strings. One of the pots that the Stalbus pulls up, it has 30 to 50 king crab in it, and then the Tromston, they're getting 5 to 10 king crab in each pot, so both crews are really happy, and Sig comes down to check one of the king crab out, and one of the deckhands, he's holding it like this. It's a little baby, because that king crab, it's worth a shit ton of money, because they're the only ones in the U.S. fleet that are getting their hands on king crab. They're finishing their seasons out strong, and Wild Bill has made enough to pay for the Summer Bay's shipyard bill, which was about $300,000. And Sig is going to make about $800,000 from king crab fishing, which was what they would have made in Alaska. Then it goes back to the Cornelia Marie, and the Cornelia Marie starts hauling in their gear, and they're getting 30+ golden king crab per pot, so they're going to finish their golden king crab season out pretty quickly here with $500,000 in earnings from the golden king crab fishery. And then it goes to the Stalbus and Tromston, and it shows them offloading their crab in Norway. And then after that, Sig says bye to his crew on the Stalbus and heads back to Alaska to get the northwestern fishing for bear-dyke crab. And then it goes to the Patricia Lee, and the Patricia Lee is hauling in their gear. They're getting about 30 to 50 golden king crab per pot, so Captain Rip's really happy about that. And then all of a sudden, one of the crew members, he's up in the bow, they hit their head on something and fall backwards, so it's not a good scene that's happening, and we'll see what happens in the next episode. So that is how episode 6 of season 18 of Deadliest Catch ends. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and don't forget to hit the bell icon down below so you can be notified when I upload videos. Also, please share this video with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to smash the like button. Thank you guys for watching, and if you ain't dreaming, you ain't living. Don't forget to dream big.